Hello.
Hello.
We want to start right off the bat with a little preamble/disclaimer. This is a podcast about recovery, ran by two comedians in recovery. That's it. Everything we say is based on our personal recovery journey.
And no matter where you are in your personal recovery journey, whether you're actively engaging in your addiction or 4 years in, you are welcome to listen.
But that being said, we're not trained to handle a crisis. We're not trained to handle anything, honestly.
If you can't tell, this podcast is pretty hard to manage for us.
But if you are in a crisis, check out the show notes for some trusted resources that may help you and keep fighting the good fight.
Axios.
And now for the show.
Functioning.
Examples of functioning. Navigational sensors aren't functioning. Glad to see you still fully functioning.
Hey. What's up, Nectarios?
What's happening, Jody?
Man, I was sort of not lamenting, but I was talking to Liz over the weekend about how great it is that I was like born with a non-binary name. Because
It saves you so much hassle.
I know. I know. And because she was telling me about one of her coworkers who has a non-binary kid, and they changed their name to Mose, and it's like an acronym for something. And I was just like, man, I really lucked out because I was locked and loaded for it, you know?
Yeah. Your parents were very prescient about what was coming.
My parents were so progressive. Almost to a fault. What's up? How you been? How's the good life? It's 80 degrees in Chicago right now on October 29th. When I moved here, this was the first time it snowed in 2017, was around Halloween. And now it's 80 degrees.
Well, I mean, that could mean anything.
Yeah, totally.
I don't have the scientific background to make claims of any sort. So
yeah, sure.
It's like 76 here, but we're in a desert. So I don't know if this is...
That seems like a reasonable temperature for
it's
a
like
desert.
Pretty cold outside, I guess.
Yeah, like for a desert location and this time of year, that seems like a reasonable thing. Right now, it should be at least in the 40s. At least. It was last week, and now it's 80. It's the most annoying time of year. It's to lose my keys in what fucking jacket I don't know. It's to leave my jacket at places because it's hot now and I don't think about it. It's like also like difficult to dress because if you leave to go somewhere at 7 a.m., you have to dress for 40 degrees. But if you get out of that place at noon or at any time during the day, it's 80 degrees. So now you got to like de-layer. And so now you're just carrying around all these clothes.
That is Albuquerque weather.
Oh, God. I hate it. It's very inconvenient.
Maybe that's why rent is so high here, because we're just matching where everything's just becoming one Albuquerque weather system. Everything's becoming one rental agreement at a time across the country.
Yeah, I blame Albuquerque for gentrification.
I blame Albuquerque.
Climate change is so inconvenient. It's so inconvenient. It's an inconvenient truth, to be honest. I didn't even mean to make that joke. But I made it. Let's talk about sobriety. Let's talk about you and me. Let's do it. What's up? It's your topic this week.
Yeah. Are you drinking coffee again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am.
All right.
I know.
You're back. Buckle up.
Gonna get unhinged.
Drinking coffee at almost 4:30. We're being a little naughty today.
Yeah, well, I have this thing called trazodone that's just been.
Oh, I know what trazodone is. I know that life. My mom gave me trazodone pills when I was in middle school, so I know what that's like.
Well, that sounds like literal abuse, but
yeah, I mean, every time I bring that up to people, they are really worried and concerned about my upbringing.
Well, the
and
first thing
I
they tell you when they give you trazodone is don't give this to anybody because it's a it's like a blood pressure medication.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah, it's supposed to lower your blood pressure. That's why they give it.
Oh, my mom just gave it to me to go to bed.
Yeah, they give it to alcoholics and people in recovery like myself because it's a non-addictive sleep medication, and it is a non-addictive sleep medication because its primary use is to lower your blood pressure. So you're not supposed to give it to people who aren't diagnosed that because it could kill them and shit because of the blood pressure stuff.
Well, I mean, I turned out all right.
Did you? I mean, you're on a podcast about sobriety. No one got here. Like, we're not here because we want to. We could be on any sort of podcast. We could be talking about history or culture or whatever.
Well, you know, the thing about trazodone, especially if you're a 14-year-old who's taking trazodone, you don't end up going to class ever because you wake up really groggy.
Yeah.
And you like basically skip school because you're too tired to go because you like have to keep sleeping. I don't know if that's like how, like if you're diagnosed with something that trazodone is required, how if you wake up, does it feel like you like both overslept and didn't sleep enough?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think my mom should have given me that.
No.
But
not at all. I'm also curious why your mom had it.
she had a script for it, but I don't remember why.
Well, if she doesn't have high blood pressure.
I think she had high blood pressure.
Okay.
That and ulcers. A lot of stomach ulcers.
Okay.
Because of pills. But anyway.
Yeah, that's where I was. That's what I'm implying. The doctor knew that she had an addictive personality. That's what I'm implying.
Anyway, had a great upbringing, I think, and lots of sleep. In middle school and high school.
Yeah, that's such a great sign of a great upbringing is when you sleep through your schooling and stuff like that.
I'm a little PO'd because, like, genetically, I feel like I should be taller, but like, for how much sleep I got, I should be at least 5'8", 5'9", but somehow it didn't. Like, I guess if you're sleeping with trazodone, your growth spurts aren't the same as everybody else's. I don't know. Maybe I'm just putting that together.
How tall are you? Not Tinder tall. Like, how tall are you in real life?
I don't know. I put 5'7" on Tinder because I'm 5'7".
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I have a 5'8" personality though.
You really do. You carry yourself like a 5'8"er. See, me, I'm a 5'9"er. And I carry my.
Yeah, that's why we get along. You're not far enough away from me that you are different, like tax bracket wise.
Yeah.
But you do kind of like leer in a subtle way.
All my friends are the similar size as me. I don't know if that's like a natural, like, kind of.
It's a tribal thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's something like that, or if I just try to like associate myself with people that I could fight, like within my weight class or something, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But I noticed that all of my closest friends are around the same. I don't have like a friend who's like 6'2".
All my closest friends are like 6'2".
Yeah, well, maybe that's something to say. Maybe that's
this is and you know what? I don't like maybe this.
We're learning a lot.
Maybe this will help get into the subject of this, but like I am interested in moving ahead in the next chapter of my life, making friends who aren't compelled to just like pick me up like I'm a child. And that was something I dealt with when I was doing stand-up, which didn't make me feel good any of the times that happened.
Yeah.
Like I would have comics that would just, especially when I started working out, I just get picked up and like touched and like oddly in never in a like a consensual way, but it was always like for funsies, let's pick up Tom, um, or touch him in some weird way, and I feel like that did me a disservice, much like the trazodone that I took when I was in, my teenage years.
I agree. I mean, if there's one thing that we've learned about stand-up comedians is they all have an issue with consenting touch. So like that tracks. That tracks. I think that like had a lasting effect on you. We could talk about that if you want, but I feel like that's outside of my wheelhouse, and you might need to speak about that with a therapist or a movement therapist, maybe. But
I don't want to. Yeah, my girlfriend is a movement therapist, or sorry, my fiance is a movement therapist, and
she's gonna hear that. She's gonna listen to the episode.
Well, we'll edit this part out.
No, won't.
I know we won't. But it's very hard to not like go to her with because I guess this is more of a post-COVID thing, but our partners, if you didn't break up or whatever during COVID, it feels like a lot of us rely on our partners almost too much, where we need to have kind of communities of friends, but because of COVID and how that kind of isolated us in a lot of ways, somehow it's just we've kind of cornered our own market to a few different people, and they become kind of everything that we need, even though people can't be everything that you need. So
yeah, you shouldn't use your girlfriend as a therapist, even if your girlfriend is a therapist.
No, especially if your girlfriend's not.
You should get a separate therapist.
Yeah. Well, that's what the monk's for.
Yeah, but you should get a therapist.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to pay a monk and a therapist.
Why are you paying a monk?
Because he's a hermit. He needs, alms. Oh. And he's giving me a service,
Well, find a therapist who's also a hermit. I'm sure there's one out there.
This was hard to find. I mean, it wasn't that hard to find, but this one was like, it took me a day. But anyway, you know what? Maybe we'll talk. We're not going to do therapy right now. This isn't a therapeutic podcast, but cathartic. It's a cathartic podcast. So my topic this week, and I appreciate that when I texted you, you were like, I don't know if this is it. And I was like, but maybe I didn't explain it correctly, because I'm really interested in this idea of like self-pity becoming, to use 12-step language, like our higher power. And this kind of cyclical way that at least I will find myself, because I overthink everything and I'm an overthinker. And I just get in my head a lot. So that kind of perpetuates the cycle of really just serving my own misery, as I'll just find different memories and make up new ones in my head, where I'll just perpetuate this idea that I'm blah, 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 but it just kind of keeps me in this really self-focused place where I'm not thinking about others. I'm not doing any kind of service to others. I'm just staying in my head thinking about what a piece of how I've just been a wasteful member of society. A lot of this can be like wallowing in all the time lost with drinking, and then other times, especially in recovery, just kind of thinking about and going, man, I don't have like alcohol to blame anymore. I think I might just be like a bad person. But then getting stuck in that and going, well, I guess that's my identity now. So I'm just going to keep what's the word where you're like, you're seeking out information that, like confirmation bias. Like you just replay videos in your head that confirms that you are a kind of a worthless human being, and you don't deserve to get better, and you don't deserve to have like a life that's fulfilling in any sense. it feels very extreme to say that, but I think that is, it's almost like an insidious thing. So it's not always explicit, but it's just a lot of like sticking a stick in your spokes.
Yeah.
And then because like if as soon as you start making progress, you got to go, no, I don't deserve to make any progress. So like, let's stab myself in the heart and kind of sit back and be like, go back to a self-loathing state of being.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, well, I mean, I think that always is rooted into why you're drinking, right? Like, I started drinking because I hate myself. Well, I hated myself in past tense, yeah. And so I started doing it. I mean, of course, like there's a bunch of other reasons, like the fun, the thrill, the community, but I kept drinking. Because I developed this, or not developed, but I had this incredibly low self-esteem that was rooted in stuff like my childhood, things that happened before I started drinking. And so, of course, when you stop drinking, that's the thing, right? It's like more self-destructive behavior, and that's kind of like that can get like addicting too. Like you're just like, you get a little addicted to feeling like a piece of shit.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
you do.
You get a little addicted to, sticking a stick in your spokes, like kneecapping yourself and like ruining your own opportunities. Like I definitely, in my early sobriety, there were times where I was like, don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up. And then I would have that little voice in my head that was just going to be like, say something kind of weird and racist. And I'll be like, no, don't do that. I don't know why. Why is that? Don't do that. And then because of that, I lose this lack of trust for myself because I don't know what that is. And of course, it's like, well, sobriety is super hard. And so that's that like insidiousness there where you're just like, oh, I'm such a sober piece of shit. Might as well be a drunk piece of shit because at least I'm having fun. And then, and then that's when slips happen. And that's when like all of that kind of stuff happens. But I think that's like, we kind of touched on this like a while back, where it's rooted in self-love and trying to learn how to do that in every level, like even with your own thoughts.
Yeah, because the especially with your thoughts, and like in the Orthodox Church, we call them the logismoi or the logismi, which are like just
death thoughts.
Death thoughts.
Logos is thoughts, right? Like thinking.
Yeah.
And then moi, that sounds like muerte, which is like death.
Yeah, they're like bad negative thoughts. And I call them like the demon whispers because it's just like stuff that you would go,
awesome. That's fucking awesome. The demon whisperers. Yeah.
Yeah, so if I get bogged down in thinking like that, I have to.
Sorry. Fucking demon whispers.
All right, well, I did like that.
Yeah. I'm gonna start calling it that. What, like when I'm staring out and they're like, what are you thinking about? I'm like, nothing. It's just my demon whispers. Which it sounds.
That's exactly the thought that I had when I started calling them that.
It's. It sounds cooler than it is because it really is just like it's not like someone being like, you deserve to be praised like Satan. It's more like, say something kind of racist and weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the person for too long and make him feel a little uncomfortable. Demon whispers.
I used to do a bit about this where like what was the premise of this? I think it was talking about me realizing that I'm a bad person, and then at some like I was listing off ways in which I actively am a bad person, and one of them was my thoughts just tell me to stare at women for too long, and it's never good for anybody, but just I can't stop doing it. And it's never a sexual thing. It's always just a weird, like, I don't know. You don't want anybody looking at you for that long.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I just look at people like I'm pretending that I have sunglasses on.
Yeah, well, it's difficult to conceptualize the aspect that you're being perceived while you're perceiving. Especially when you have especially when you're struggling with a low self-esteem and you feel so small, and then you're just like, oh, I actually exist within this world. It's not just TV time. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Because sometimes
yeah. But so on your note though, like the demon whispers do start out with saying, you're like, oh, you're in a social situation. Why don't you say so? Dude, do you remember that racist thing that you thought of last night? That was kind of funny in context. Why don't you say it right now out of context? But if you give into them too much, or you just start listening to them more and more, they do kind of get heightened to the point where you go, things like, I don't know, you start like becoming more and more controlling over yourself and over others, and you're trying, and you do internally become kind of domineering, whether or not you actively are controlling other people. I think it's more of in your head where you get stuck in there and you go like, why wasn't that person nice to me 15 years ago? Or why is my girlfriend not talking to me today? I know she's busy, but I'm here too, or blah, 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 blah. And like, these are energetically wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I mean, to tie it back to recovery and sobriety, I really feel like as the years have gone on since not drinking, those thoughts have become louder and louder because they're tied to something that I'm just not dealing with, or I'm not aware of, and at least with drinking, you just pour alcohol on them and they either go away or you just become the demon whispers. And you get on stage and you make everybody's night not as fun as it was 5 minutes ago. And then, or, you don't drink, and those thoughts, you just have to kind of deal with them yourself and figure out ways to cope, but not suppress them. Like somehow you have to like move out of that and like substitute them in a certain way.
Yeah. I mean, you got to flip the script or find another place for that energy.
Yeah.
I definitely, especially when I'm in like a hypomanic state, I am either fucking on top of the world and everything is great, or everything sucks and I'm going to just barrel through anything that stands in my way to change it. And that also comes with a lot of negative self-thought and just general pessimism. And there's a lot of like yearning and wanting, and then also like shutting myself down from those yearns and wants because I don't see the path from point A to point B, especially within the time frame. And then I also get particularly obsessed with the amount of time I wasted drinking and not reaching that potential that I could have had, or thinking about people that I've hurt or people who I could have been friends with but didn't, and because drinking got in the way. And then the next thing I know, like a week has gone by and I haven't done anything but just like think about people who don't give a shit about me anymore, and I've like lost total grasp on the presence. And within that first year of sobriety, especially in that first like 2 years, I guess, I mean, even outside of sobriety, I mean, just like within my own recovery from trying to figure out how to make better decisions, a lot of that comes from reframing the way that I like what I did with that energy. So if I caught myself getting really upset at stupid shit, I have to step back. I have to like try to step back, but first I have to catch myself, and that's the hardest part. And then I got to step back and and then be like, wow, I'm really beating myself up. I think one of the biggest things that someone ever said to me that blew my mind was, hey, be nice to my friend Jody. I remember someone said that to me and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm Jody. Oh shit. Yeah, it gets like, it definitely, especially within like, because the chemical makeup of your brain is just bummed out. I mean, all of it is just downers. You're out of serotonin. You don't have the right coping mechanisms, and the world sucks. And on top of that, there's alcohol everywhere, fucking everywhere. Like I remember like my first year of sobriety, there were people who were just like, oh man, you're going through some stuff. You want to go grab a beer and talk about it? And like, dude, I just told you that I'm sober. I just told you that I quit drinking. And like, oh, cool. Is it cool if I drink? And it's just like, no. But then what am I going to say? Because if I say no, then it's like, then I don't have any friends.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the thing that kind of kept perpetuating this I'm a piece of shit thing, is I personally was taking on my sobriety alone and like white knuckling it while everyone else was just like, oh yeah, this Jody's doing his own thing and blah, 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 blah. And like, it's just like, I don't know. I look back and I shouldn't have had to do that. And I shouldn't have done it to myself, because I was the one who was like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. This is my thing to take care of. I'll take care of it on my own. But at the same time, I was like, but I'm too good to go to a meeting because I'm not like that big of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah. I haven't lost a kid, so why do I need to go?
Yeah. I didn't like lose. I've only lost like every job I've ever had, but it's not like I like, well, okay, well, I was like homeless for a little bit, but I wasn't like sleeping on, well, I was sleeping in my car, but like I wasn't like completely sleeping on the ground, or like, I didn't like, piss on the cake at the Christmas party or anything wild like that. Like, I'm not.
Yeah. And even if I did, that was hilarious. So,
and it was a different kind of party. It was that kind of party where they allow that. But it's like, and so I was also kind of surrounding myself with people who also perpetuated that idea. And that was the hardest thing to get away from. That was the hardest thing to get out of that, like to catch that, because I had no litmus test. I had no, everything that I was reflecting out was reflected back at me.
You were surrounding yourself with people that were also white knuckling it?
No, I was surrounding myself with people who also thought that I was a piece of shit.
Oh, okay. Well, see that, but that's like that's the kind of subconscious perpetuation of, this kind of, I don't know, serving your own suffering, where like, I'm just going to go and find ways to beat myself up. And if I can't do it, I can find other people that I know will do it. And I'll remain in a security blanket of being beat up. It's like that scene in Full Metal Jacket, where I'm going to get into my nice snug bed and the people come and beat me with batteries in their socks. And that's what I'm comfortable with, honestly.
So
What?
In that scene, it was soap. They used bars of soap.
Soap.
So
Oh, not batteries. Soap.
I didn't want to get any letters from our many listeners that use that.
Sorry, all my FMJ fans out there. But yeah, that's and that's kind of where I don't know this problem that I have, which is maybe comes from the American South Protestant work ethic of implicit self-flagellation, even though they reject Roman Catholicism pretty hardcore. There is still this element of, well, are you doing enough? Are you suffering enough? Are you up at dawn? Are you the last one off the farm or whatever? And so, you get into this place where, oh man, I'm not, if I need to be gentle with myself, then there's all these voices in my head that are going, are you kidding? You haven't done anything today.
Yeah.
Screw you.
Oh yeah.
Why don't you call a friend who's absolutely going to rip into you? Because that's what you clearly need. You need a kick in your ass. So why don't you, so.
Yes.
And that's a hard place to get out of because, especially I think when you are drinking, it's hard to tell who is your real buddy and who is just some dude that you drink with that, y'all do weird battles together at night that seem like they're friendly, but really y'all are just drunk and yelling at each other.
What? That was oddly specific. What kind of battles? Like chicken?
It's just just like riffing battles or just making fun of each other's music or whatever. Not like wizard battles.
Yeah, I mean, that would be way cooler.
Like going to the back of Limerick in the parking lot when you get your wands out with
like
the regulars
and Aleister Crowley did. Yeah.
Yeah. Kick a poet down the stairs at Limerick.
Yeah, no, I remember the old pissing contests on the carport and at the carport of your place where all the comedians are trying to see how drunk we can get and how funny we can get and how loud we can get.
Oh yeah, everybody's one-upping each other. It's 2 a.m. and we're all drunk, so we're not tired, but there's has to be some element underneath all that where you go, dude, what is the point of this? What are we? It's Tuesday. I mean, it was Tuesday 2 hours ago. It's Wednesday. What are we doing?
And why are we doing it? Why are we here?
Why? Are we that are we that starved for attention and that we could do 3 shows on a Tuesday night and then still need to continue drinking and bark at each other?
Side note, not to glorify those moments. One time coming home from that party, one of those parties, I had we went to cookout and I had a 24-ounce styrofoam cup. And I guess I put whiskey in it or something, but it was empty. And I threw up on the ride home into the cup, exactly 24 ounces. I just put the top right back on it. It was one of the most not wonderful, but one of the most, it was I don't know. Does that count as a miracle? I've never done that before. Exactly.
No, I think that counts as magic. I think that counts as the black arts.
I feel like I've just got so good at being drunk. I was like, and win.
That's incredible. That is incredible.
It was incredible. I remember I was in the back seat by myself. Everyone was in the front seat, and I was like, guys.
Who was driving?
I don't remember. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that wasn't the important part of the story anyway.
They weren't as impressed as I was. I remember that.
Well, in hindsight, I as someone hearing it, secondary, I think it's really impressive.
It's interesting you brought up that Southern aspect because I had that too. I was like, when I first got sober, I didn't really tell anyone because I had that silent strength of a Southern man, and then now I've been hanging out with some people who are 2 years sober. They all met in the same outpatient recovery program, which I didn't know was a thing until recently. And they're like, yeah, and they all take this thing called a camper state, I think it's called, and it's
Okay.
like a pill that curbs your cravings, which I didn't know was a thing.
That's a thing?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. There's a pill that like if you do drink, it doesn't affect you at all, and then there's a pill that if you drink, it makes alcohol taste so gross that you don't want to do it, like Clockwork Orange style.
What the hell? Is that new?
No, it's been around. We're just
Oh,
dumb,
man.
and we don't trust the government, and we don't trust them doctors. And I'm like sitting here hearing their stories, and then they're like, yeah, and then they go to SMART meetings. They don't do AA; they go to SMART meetings, which is sort of like a chiller AA. It's like they're kind of aligned with what we talk about on this podcast, where harm reduction and attacking the root of the problem instead of just being like, I will not drink with you today, and it's not religious, and it's like very intentional, and it uses a lot of CBT and stuff like that. And so they go to these SMART meetings, and they have this like camaraderie. They text each other, they talk to each other, and this whole time I'm like, what in the fuck was I doing? I was just quiet.
I lost all my friends while I was getting sober.
Yeah.
That's so funny, man. That's like this
Tom,
is
the only way I knew you got sober is because you started posting the same sad country songs that I was posting on Instagram when I got sober. And I was like, oh shit, I know what this. And then I reached out to you, and that was our recovery program. And I was like, that's not right, man. That's not right at all.
This is so like I'm now. Oh, speak about wallowing in wasted time. Like, man, if I could just go back 4 or 5 years, man,
it would have been so much easier if I had a camper state, especially, man, because that was the hardest, was the cravings. And then they have, they have like why we're thinking like, it's like is it CBT? Yeah, CBT, but they have this whole like CBT workbook where it's like this negative thought actually could be reframed as a positive in a positive way. I'm a piece of shit. In what ways can I better myself? And it's like they have a workbook that they got.
I'm over here white knuckling the demon whispers, and they have a workbook.
They have a workbook. The demon whispers is just Southern culture. That's all it is.
It's the Southern Gothic in my head.
Yeah.
But this is, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. It's also, there's a part of me where I'm like, what the fuck? There's also a part of me that's like, there's also a part of me that's sort of like, well, shit.
Yeah, but is there a part of you it's still that Southern man that's in the back of your head that's going, well, I didn't need smart recovery. I just needed to, sit in my car for 4 hours listening to like Townes Van Zandt albums, and that's what got me through.
Just eating pounds and pounds and pounds of candy and looking at all of my ex's Instagrams. That's all I need.
I was just looking at Venmo to all the people that blocked me on Instagram, seeing what they were up to.
It's like it goes back to integration, I think. It goes back to this cool trick that we learned called compartmentalization, where we learned how to put on a brave face while carrying the world on our shoulders, and that was all we knew how to do. Like, I mean, even when I was drinking, like, as a functional alcoholic, I would go in the next day and try my best to not look as hungover as I was. And I wouldn't, go into detail about how my night was before. And I I was hiding constantly, which was something I learned in my childhood, because that's what kids who are being abused do. They don't want anyone else to find out they're being abused, so they learn how to put on a show and compartmentalize that. And so that's sort of what the demon whisperers are. It's that habit of putting it in the throw shit room. Do you have a throw shit room, or like it's the junk drawer, or it's like, fuck it, I'll just, like, you get something and you're like, I don't know where to put this, so you just put it in that room. Are you in
I know
it?
what that's
Is it
like.
your room?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I think it's hard to get out of that. And but there's also like the pride in that, where like, well, I didn't need nobody.
Yeah.
I didn't need nobody because I got this special room where I cry and I have the most vulnerable parts of myself, and nobody will ever see that. Nobody, not even me. But it just like for me at least, that room just got so big it overwhelmed me, and I was like, all right, I'm going to start a podcast where I talk about all my shit, and it wasn't sustainable. I mean, would we be on this podcast if we had a camper state? I don't know. I don't know. Who cares? I'm glad we're here, but it's like there is that sort of honoring, right? Like, it's hard. It's that hard to let go of that, like, that brave face that got you through all that shit.
Yeah, the I guess the mask that you develop when you're in your childhood, and that it kind of evolves over time, and then I don't know, you like, it just becomes such a big part of you that when you can't use it anymore and you need to find a way to take it off, then it's like in the kingdom of heaven with the leper king, where it's like you got to take off the mask, and who knows what's going to be underneath, because you don't even know, because you've been just suppressing all this stuff, and it's like
Wait,
at least how I feel. What?
the kingdom of the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I don't know. You could have easily been talking about the actual heaven.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's
and I
true.
was
Yeah.
like, is there a leper king in heaven? I was like, who is this?
It's probably the Orthodox have like some extra books that in our Bible.
Yeah,
so
like, is this like the winds of winter or something? Or like,
yes, yeah, some part of our canon. You might not have heard of it, but yeah, I feel like you just kind of, whatever's true, one gets kind of calcified underneath the mask, and then on the other hand, it doesn't actually ever grow up. It doesn't go through that. We keep hitting this, but it doesn't go through the stages of maturity. So when you do take off the mask, then you're like, well, shoot, man, like, I'm a leper child. Like, I'm just this. I'm like a Frankenstein's monster of adult child parts and mind, and like, I don't know how to even be a person, or am I a person at all? Like, if I take off the mask, will I continue to be me? And like, what even is that? And that was at least like a big part of the first two-ish years of my sobriety, which was just really, really being afraid of, all right, well, if I don't act this way, who am I? And is that, I mean, I don't know, like, who am I without all these externals?
yeah. And then that becomes the identity too. Like, yeah, not like the identity is You're like, who am I? And you're like, okay, I'm an alcoholic. Hi, I'm Jody Buffkin. I'm an alcoholic.
Right.
Who am I? I'm an alcoholic. I'm a piece of shit. I did all these terrible things. I fucked up my life. I'm late on everything in my life. I fucking just started trying to learn how to make friends in my 30s, and I just started trying to identify healthy relationships and taking my career more seriously. And I don't know what to do, and I don't have any resources, and I am constantly sad, and I can't think straight because I fucked everything up because I'm a piece of shit. And that becomes your identity. And those are the demon whispers, right? Because then you're sitting there trying to be like, no, there's another side of you, that side of you that chose to be sober, that surviving side, that little kid in you who's like, I'm not gonna die. uh, that's the side that was like, that's constantly saying no, and then their demon whisperers being like, hey, you're a piece of shit, you fucked everything up. And then you get kind of addicted to that, and
You really do. Yeah.
because it's emotion. That was, for me, that was what it was. I was like, yes, finally I can feel true sadness. And then it was just like, oh no, but what do I have if I resolve this sadness?
What even am I
What
now?
do I have?
Yeah, what do I have without this sadness? Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep perpetuating this sadness in a different way. Yeah, I won't drink because I want to live, but I guess I want to live miserably for some reason. I don't know. The logic isn't there, but of course, like as an alcoholic, the logic was never there. There's always that contrasting logic of being an alcoholic. So it's just like, it's like, I want to live, but I also want to just disappear. What is this? It took me, I think, honestly, like until earlier this year. We had a whole podcast where you and Asia just like ripped into me about how much of a piece of shit I was for not loving myself. I mean, just ripped into me for just not having the motivation to do things for myself because I did everything out of spite, you know? And that was like, what, 2 years ago? Maybe, no, it was last year, I guess. And I'm being facetious. It was great. But yeah, it wasn't until this year, it's been this whole long journey of recognizing the ways that I abandoned myself. And by that, I mean like recognizing the ways that I'm still being an alcoholic and destroying the things that are good for me and listening to my demon whispers. And then also like finding out what is life without that. And it's been fun. It's been fucking awesome. But like I got really into birds, but it's just been great. Um, but it's just like, who knew I like birds? I also discovered don't really care for dogs. Hot take.
Oh, wow.
I know we just lost like all 10 of our listeners, but it's been difficult because I still find little ways where I would sabotage myself almost purposefully, and it doesn't logically make sense. But to me, it was just like the process of self-love was like too hard for me to maintain for a long time. So I couldn't believe it. And so I got addicted to that feeling of like self-flagellation. One time my therapist said this thing to me. One time my therapist said this thing to me. It blew my fucking mind. It was right after the breakup that happened earlier this summer. And she was like, it's easy to blame yourself, isn't it? And I was like, she was like, it's easy for you to take on the blame because that's what we're used to. What I'm used to is to take the blame and blame myself for the stuff that's happening. and to be like sort of stuck in this, like, I don't want to say victim mentality because it's thrown around too many times, but in this self-flagellating mentality, instead of recognizing the strengths that helped us survive.
That is why I mentioned that. I don't think I've said it because it's a weird word that has a lot. It's a loaded word, but I think that is why I mentioned pride to you as the topic, because
Yeah.
it's really like pride itself in application, I think, looks more like us taking the blame for everything rather than any other kind of conjuration we can come up with that is, stereotypical pride of, I don't know, like arrogance, puffed up nonsense. But really, at least in my experience, pride manifests more so in, oh my gosh, something bad happened. No one seems to be taking any blame. I guess it's mine to take. But that's definitely, I don't know if you like got into it with your therapist or whatnot, but it definitely has roots in childhood where, if you're raised by like narcissists or people that give their kids trazodone, you're usually living with people that aren't going to take responsibility for their lives or yours. And so when things happen and no one's taking responsibility, even you as a child need like kind of step up and go, okay, something's wrong here. So I guess it's my fault. Am I at fault for like all the bad that's going on? Why is everybody throwing things? I guess that's my fault. So, but it's this weird inversion of control. Like you have to take control. If it's my fault, if something's my fault, then at the very least I can be in control of it. But sometimes things are just not ours to be blamed for or in our control, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah, I was a little iffy about the word pride because it is like such a loaded word, and it's like it's also something that's good and bad, right? Mm. But I was also thinking like the opposite of pride is humility, right? Also a good and bad word. I was humiliated, or he walked with humility, but it's like rooted in the word human. Mm. And I think I think I read that. I think Bell Hooks said that, or maybe it was in When Things Fall Apart. But it was just about how humility is just allowing yourself to be human. Allowing like these things, like, yeah, it's maybe it's no one's fault. Shit just happens. Shit just sucks sometimes. Yeah. Like it's so hard for me personally to like comprehend that. And it's like it is rooted in my childhood, right? It was like you were saying, like it was like I'll feign and take the blame just to like make sure everything keeps being copacetic, and that I think became a big part of my early sobriety was still like taking that blame and living that narrative instead of being like, yeah, of course I drank myself to oblivion. I was sad and life is difficult. And some of the people who should have protected me didn't for a very long time. I was abandoned physically and emotionally by several people. And I also did that to other people because that was what I learned. And this is just the equation that landed in my lap. And now I'm sober. And I don't know how to like not do that anymore. And so it took a really long time for me to kind of like realize to let go, that I need to let go of that thought process. And it took me a long time, in particular, because I'm a real stubborn son of a bitch. And and
like any good Texan.
Yeah. And so I like a lot of it was like, no, this is my fault. And then in years, people are like, no, this thing's kind of happened. No, they don't just kind of happen. They only kind of happen because of me, Jody. But that stubbornness is also what kept me alive. So it was one of those kind of things where I was just like, no, I'm going to keep on going forward with this hatred in my heart.
Well, see, and that's like you have the full equation, except you're adding stuff to it now. Like the equation is you want to live, you want to sustain yourself, and I like what the word you use, equation, of things just kind of falling into our lap that leads us to act certain types of ways. But sometimes you just gotta like slog some exponents off or something. You got to make this math a little easier because you're carrying too many things forward. Like sustaining, persevering is good, but if you're persevering that energized by hatred, like at least because I did that for so long, it's so exhausting.
Yeah.
And but like on the kind of the flip side, so I liked, again, you said your identity at a certain point, you say like, I'm Jody, I'm an alcoholic. In the Orthodox worldview, our identity is I am well, our identity is a Christian, but we also say I am a sinner, which isn't supposed to be this kind of like despairing, I'm a piece of crap, therefore I will act out that way. It's more of just like, well, I'm going to fall and that's okay as long as I keep getting up. Like I wasn't made to be perfect, because who's perfect? No one's perfect. And it encompasses a lot of just non-judgment, non-possessiveness, ways of being where you're merciful, compassionate, and loving toward everybody else. That being said, it helps to look back in your life and go, man, I really did some damage because I was raised by damaged people. And it's really hard to look myself in the mirror sometimes and go, I want to be good, but man, I have like a lot of stuff in my wake back there that I did do that. And where the level is being gentle and kind with yourself enough to say, okay, well, you did that, but today's today, and that was however long ago. Like, you need to forget that, and you need to move forward. Where a lot of times you go, man, I did that. Oh, crap. Is that who I am? Should I just keep doing that, I guess? Is that, I'll just like keep remembering at least that I did that and never forgive myself. And that helps to kind of carry hatred into the present moment.
Isn't that one of the steps? The forgiveness step? Isn't that like the 8th step or something where you're supposed to like ask?
I think it's 6.
I don't know. I never.
8 is no unusual and cruel punishment, I think.
To who? To
yourself.
Oh.
That was a civics joke. Sorry.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds wrong.
Yeah, but I think it's 6.
You were doing the 8th Amendment, weren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, that was smart.
Yeah, well, thanks.
Yeah. And then they made the 13th Amendment. The 13th step. Yeah, it's I don't know how to bounce back from that joke. We might have.
I was gonna make some horrible joke about that, but
that was a demon whisper.
Yeah, that was a demon whisper that told me to make some racist joke up. So just continue on. But yeah, the asking for forgiveness. I didn't think about the 6 or whatever step that was, but the only way that you can forgive other people is if you forgive yourself. And the only way that you can be in community with people is to forgive them. Like, we're all going to mess up. And it's helpful in some respects to think about yourself
first and go, man, that person pissed me off today, but good golly, 10 years ago, I really messed up, didn't I? So, I mean, who am I to judge this person who like cut me off in traffic? I like ruined someone's life. So who am I?
Yeah, but also, you know, fuck that guy for cutting you off. I think it's just doing yourself a disservice and the people who you hurt a disservice by staying back there.
Yeah, because it's kind of like just remaining in a place where you're constantly hurting them, because you're like, you know, every moment is kind of this eternal present moment. So locking yourself in, you know, 10 years ago, I did something to somebody that, man, I wish that I could undo. And I wasn't thinking that when I did it, and I was thinking about myself, and I was also drunk and blah, blah, blah.
Well, you also did that to yourself.
Did that to myself, and like, if I remain in that place, I'm going to continuously do it to them and do it to myself.
Yeah.
Over and over again. And that happened whenever ago. And that person is now like is very successful. So why even, you know?
Which adds to it, where you're just like, and now they're successful? What the fuck? How'd they bounce back from my terrible?
Well, yeah. There's like more pride of like, well, but I ruined their life though. I did that. I got drunk and I ruined their life. Why are they a doctor now?
Hold on a second.
What is that?
Wait, maybe I don't matter to them as much as I think, and maybe the only life I ruined was my own. So maybe
that's really hard to come to grips with. I think like it's because you want to. I feel like it's easier to look at other people and go, I messed up their life, therefore I need to either self-flagellate forever or make amends, or so. At least there's some action that I can make externally. But if I have to reflect and go, oh no, the only person I effed up was myself, then what do you do? Like, how am I gonna look myself in the mirror, forgive myself, and do all this? What is this about? Now I have to do inner work? I don't think so. I'd rather just ask for forgiveness.
Well, I think in Smart Recovery, they write letters to their childhood self, and then like their teenage self, and then their like 20-year-old self. They do that in like recovery, in outpatient recovery or something like that. So that's the advice we should have gotten. 6 months in, instead of working at a PF Chang's, I should have been in an outpatient recovery. Although being broke and working in that PF Chang's is the thing that kept the first 6 months of my sobriety was the thing that kept me sober, because I made $20 a week, and I was either like, well, I'm going to eat or I'm going to drink. I guess I got to eat. And so I didn't have any money for booze. I didn't need a camper state. I had dynamite shrimp.
COVID helped me this first 6 months.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can't go to the bars anyway because everything's closed.
Yeah. Thank God. So I guess the lesson is just be nice to yourself and live in the moment. Nothing matters and everything matters at the same time. Fuck it.
Yeah. Wow. Woo-way.
Exactly. All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks for listening, y'all. That's it. Thanks for listening. I don't have any housekeeping except well, let's do that after this. Let's do that recording so I can start putting at the beginning of the podcast. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Don't listen to the demon whisperers.
Don't listen to the demon whisperers if you're thinking about starting a really kick-ass metal band and you call yourself the demon whisperers, we will sue the shit out of you, because that is our idea. And if you take it, I will be very upset. And you're going to have to give us some of your winnings. All right. Thanks. That's a threat. See ya.